Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Conversations with Mark Becker, a podcast produced by Georgia State University. You can find this episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Google Play, as well as on YouTube. In this and future episodes, I sit down with leaders who are shaping the future of higher education in America and beyond. We dive into the challenges and opportunities facing higher education and explore policies and practices that show promise of a brighter future. I hope you will find these conversations stimulating and thought-provoking, and if you do, please subscribe so that you will not miss future episodes. Again, I'm your host, Georgia State President Mark Becker, and today my guest is a returnee, Dr. Bridget Burns, Executive Director of the University Innovation Alliance. Welcome back to Georgia State.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you're here today. We're going to talk about a documentary, the documentary movie Unlikely, and you're one of the featured voices of higher education in Unlikely. So tell us what it's about.
So the documentary Unlikely, people are talking about it like it's the Waiting for Superman for higher ed, and it's essentially a compilation of various student stories who navigate different kinds of post-secondary institution, the struggles that they run into, especially the students of today, and gives a real big picture view of the challenges of higher education, the challenges higher ed is dealing with now, what students face, and how universities can actually try and address them. It features, thankfully, our institutions. It features both Arizona State and Georgia State, and it talks about the UIA, in addition to a wide variety of other thought leaders in the space. And for me, it's I'm just so grateful that they did this because they are Jay Fenderson and Adam Fenderson, who are directors who previously directed the film First Generation. And they have personal connection to this work and just wanted to try and amplify through storytelling, which was what they had, that's their skill. And I'm so grateful that skilled storytellers are picking up these issues and helping us to better unpack what the students of today are facing and what higher ed needs to do. And so it's a really, it's a compelling piece. It's emotional. I mean, everybody cries in a good way, especially the graduation scene. And, I think it's a powerful missing tool that we needed in this sector.
Well, Adam and Jay are award winners, and movies that make you cry. I mean, they told their story well. They did a good job. Yeah. So I know you big fan of the movie, big fan of the work, a big fan of Adam and Jay and what they've done. But I think there's more than just this being a movie. Why do you think this documentary is so important?
Well, for me, it's really important because I work with universities trying to transform themselves around student success. And I get to watch the innovators, and I get to also watch those who want to learn from innovators. And it becomes clear if you watch enough institutions struggling with these issues, you realize that there is a void. And that is, you can have a strong leader, if you're lucky, who picks a direction and says, this is the North Star, and here's what we're doing, and we're all marching this direction, and they don't just say it once. So I think, when I talk about that, I talk about you and I talk about Michael Crow. You repeat yourselves a lot, right? And that's super important so that the organization understands where we're moving. And that's things like your strategic plan and all kinds of the decisions you make, right? But not every university has a leader who does that. Right. Instead, what I see is a lot of campuses being led by folks who say something once, but they also say 19 other things that we're going to do. And they make it really difficult for the people who work on that campus to know, what is our passion in this space. And so for me, Unlikely is this missing tool we've always needed that enables an institution to bring everyone together in one room and have an anchoring emotional moment where everyone kind of eyeball to eyeball. We all saw this. We all were compelled by the emotional commitment we have to our students and the change we want to create. And now we're going to talk about what we're going to do as an institution. For a long time, this is, you've got a few isolated leaders throughout the country. You could count them on 4 hands who I see are doing this on a regular basis. 20, okay. Yeah, and across sectors, right? Like, so I'm talking about whether we're talking about Miami-Dade or UMBC, or we're talking about institutions that are doing incredible things like Rio Salado or whatever. It doesn't matter the type of it, but the kind of leader we need there is rare. And so, in absence of that, what's something we could actually do no matter what is create this moment that enables leaders to rise to the occasion, and it creates a moment where campuses can have a conversation that we need them to have. And so for me, I think that the film is critically important, to release to the public. Great. Yes, they should be educated. It's essentially like, from my view, the first semester of an EDD program for schools of education. It essentially briefs you on the history of higher ed finance, the challenges, response, what are the issues in the for-profit sector, what do we need to know. It's a great tutorial, but for the rest of us, it anchors you in why we do this work and the kind of work that needs to be done. And so I think it's a tool.
And I think it does a good job of, through storytelling, of showing the hurdles and the challenges that so many people trying to get an education in America today face. So that, many of us grow up with the perception that you go to high school, you graduate high school, you go to college, you graduate in 4 years, you go to work. And then you watch Unlikely, and
shades of gray.
That's not
it's
not that simple. The road's not that straight. The road has many curves and twists and turns. You can't see around the corners, and sometimes when you get around the corner, there's rocks or there's potholes, and the potholes, in fact, the bridge may be out. And I think it's really powerful in being able to deliver that in a compelling voice through the voices of the people that are living these journeys and these challenges.
Yeah, and across the wide variety. So I transferred from a community college. You also transferred from a community college. So we understand the complexity here. But there are a lot of people who work in higher ed who are not thinking about this and understanding that we need to do a much better job in the on-ramp. We need to do a much better job communicating with students and understanding that their lives don't start when they walk on our campus. I mean, they're juggling a million things, and so we should not be an obstacle to their success. We should not be redundantly communicating. We should not have booby traps and landmines and ridiculous process that only serves the adult, meaning the people who work at the university. It needs to actually work for the student. So I think it's incredibly powerful, especially as we know where the demographics of this country are going. Right. If we don't serve this, and by this meaning it's not a typecast, but if we don't serve the vast breadth of diversity in this country,
the American people inclusively.
It's the economic competitiveness of our country is at stake. Right. This is a absolute threat in terms of our economy and whether or not we can actually solve the problems of society for today and going forward. So, super powerful.
And it's not an urban issue. It's not a rural issue. It's an American issue.
Yeah.
So is it your hope that universities across the country, colleges across the country will really, as a community, come together to experience this documentary and then use it as a launching point for conversations about redesigning their institutions to better serve the students that we have today, the students that are the American higher education
100%.
world today?
I think it's that plus, my dream scenario, which I don't have the time to make happen, so I'm hoping someone else does. Campuses do this.
Everybody will listen to this podcast, they'll hear it here, and then it will happen.
Yeah, but campuses use this as, if you're heading into a team retreat, you're going to do a showing or they're going to cut a smaller version, and you could actually have that kind of emotionally anchoring moment, tease up the conversation. You engage in an unconference or a design sprint or a process mapping, like all these different things that we're learning in the UIA that help universities identify what the next step is. It's really helpful to have that galvanizing moment leading into that. But then separately, I would love if every community in this country decided to own their achievement gap. If they did a showing and they invited local nonprofits, every type of university, K-12, students, families, philanthropy, and we actually, if everyone in Des Moines decides that we're going to talk about what the achievement gap is in our local community and what we're going to do and what's our strategy to close it. This shouldn't be just on the shoulders of higher ed. It shouldn't just be on the shoulders of policymakers. It needs to be everyone. It also should be a tool to educate in every state legislature. There should be a screening in the legislatures and make it like a sexy red carpet moment so that every member of the legislature comes out and they become educated about the real challenges. I just think, it can be leveraged as a tool to help us finally get the momentum that we need to solve some of these problems.
Well, you just described the invite list for the Georgia State premiere of Unlikely. Can't tell you everybody shows up, but it's that is the entire goal, is to create a community conversation around that. And I also know that there are, above and beyond universities, there are professional societies and organizations that are using Unlikely as the launching point for their conversations. So an important step, an important documentary, something that everybody should see, something that everybody should really process and think deeply about. But is this all we need, or is there more?
Oh, so much more, right? Have you seen Fail State, by the way?
Not yet.
Oh my gosh, it's so awesome. If you want like a clear tutorial on the historic scaffolding of the challenges around the for-profit university sector, it's really fantastic, especially through the eyes of a student. So I think that we have a lot of these areas where universities are not necessarily a credible spokesperson. If we were, it would have worked, right? I think that we have a lot of questions and challenges coming forward from society that need to be addressed. So, is college worth it? I keep seeing those things pop up. Should everyone go to college? All of these questions. I don't know that hearing a university say, well, our degrees are good, or our graduates do well. I don't think that responds when people are skeptical about the value of what we do. I think that we need storytelling. We need first-person narrative. We need people telling the story of how it's transformed their lives, right? Like, I talk a lot about my story overcoming to get to college and that I had, $50,000 in student loans, but the piece that's missing there is my favorite day of the month is the day I pay my student loans, because it's such a reminder, a visceral reminder that I was terrified to bet on myself and I didn't know if it was going to work out, and it totally did. And it's such a great reminder because I work in this space that transforms lives, and so like the 5th of the month is my favorite day, right? Things like that need to be shared, not universities saying here's our graduates are good, right? Like, I just think that we've been too defensive, and there's a lot of narrative out there that needs some deeper explanation. And I think that first person and compelling storytelling is very much needed to help us try and address some of these things.
Well, and Unlikely is compelling, and we certainly encourage all of our listeners to go give it a shot and learn about it, and perhaps that will stimulate whether it's a Georgia State film major to make their own documentary story, or whether it's someone else. But take the encouragement that Bridget has shared here and to all others out there. So.
Yeah, if folks want more, they can go to unlikelyfilm.com, and you can actually host a screening in your local area. It's very easy. There's a process. You fill out a form, and otherwise, also just invite colleagues to identify where in your local community or in your state could a conversation prompted like this by this. Where could it benefit the work that you need to have happen? I just think that this is a tool now in our toolbox, and we need to leverage it.
The more tools, the better. We got a lot of work to do. Well, this has been Conversations with Mark Becker, a podcast produced by Georgia State University, and you've been listening to a conversation with Dr. Bridget Burns, head of the University Innovation Alliance. To hear future conversations with leaders who are helping shape the future of higher education, you will find Conversations with Mark Becker on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Google Play, as well as viewable on YouTube. Thank you for listening, and remember to subscribe so that you will not miss future episodes. Goodbye for now.
See ya.